Every story leaves something behind. A whisper, a shadow, a question that was never answered. Here, we dig through the forgotten files, the unsolved mysteries, the chilling true crimes, and the horrors people wish had stayed buried. From haunted legends to real-life nightmares, every tale is pulled straight from the horror archives. So turn down the lights, put on your headphones, and step carefully, because once a story enters the horror archives, it never truly leaves.
3 terrifying true stories about people who went missing and the people who went looking for them. These were submitted by viewers, and each one left me uneasy in a way I wasn't expecting. The first is about a hiker who vanished from a trail in Washington state, and the brother who followed him in. This first story is called The Trail Register That Kept Going. A man goes looking for his missing brother on a closed trail in the Pacific Northwest and finds messages that shouldn't exist. This one is a slow build, but that ending stayed with me. The last entry in the trail register was dated 3 weeks after the trail had been closed. That alone wouldn't have bothered me, except the handwriting was my brother's. I need to back up. My brother Kyle went missing in October of 2021 while solo hiking a section of the Pacific Northwest Trail in Washington state. He was experienced. He had gear, a PLB, a plan filed with 3 people, and he'd done harder trails before. When he didn't check in after 4 days, search and rescue went out. They found his tent still staked, his pack still loaded, his boots still inside the tent vestibule. No sign of Kyle. They searched for 11 days. Dogs lost the scent about 40 yards from the campsite. Just lost it, like he'd been lifted off the ground. I flew out from Ohio 3 weeks later, after the official search had ended. I told myself I just needed to see where it happened. My girlfriend told me not to go. My mom told me not to go. I went anyway. The trailhead was gated. A laminated sign said the trail was closed due to hazardous conditions and ongoing investigation. I went around the gate. The trail was easy to follow for the first 4 miles. Packed dirt, blaze markers every 100 yards or so. Normal, but around mile 5, I started noticing the blazes were getting closer together. Not like someone had added more, like the trail between them was shrinking. I found the first trail register at mile 6, mounted to a post near a creek crossing. These are just logbooks where hikers sign their name, date, maybe a comment. Standard backcountry stuff. I opened it and flipped to the last entries. Most were from September, weeks before Kyle had gone out. Normal entries. Great weather. Saw a marmot. The usual. Then there was an entry from October 14th, Kyle's handwriting. I recognized it immediately. He wrote, "Still here. Trail keeps going." October 14th was 2 days after he was reported missing. I kept hiking. The forest was getting denser in a way that didn't match the terrain map. The trees were closer together, the canopy thicker. It was early afternoon, but the light felt like dusk. I found a second register at what should have been mile 8. Kyle had signed that one too. October 21st. It said, "Found another register. Trail keeps going. Don't think it stops." That was 9 days after he vanished. 9 days after they found his boots. I should have turned around. I know that. But I kept walking because the trail kept going, and the registers kept appearing. There was one every half mile now. Kyle's entries were in all of them. The dates kept advancing. October 28th, November 3rd, November 15th. The messages got shorter. Still walking, still here, then just going. The last register I found was nailed to a tree at what my GPS said was mile 11, except my GPS had stopped updating about a mile back. Kyle's entry was dated December 9th, 2021, almost 2 months after he disappeared. 2 words, "Don't stop." I stopped. I stood there reading those words, and something in the trees ahead of me shifted. Not an animal, not the wind. The trail itself seemed to move, like the path was breathing, like it was adjusting. I turned around and I walked back the way I came. I did not run. I wanted to, but something told me that if I ran, I'd just end up further in. It took me 3 hours to get back to the trailhead. It had taken me 5 hours to hike in. The registers I'd passed on the way up were still there, but when I opened them, Kyle's entries were gone. Every one of them. Blank pages where his handwriting had been. I reported everything to the ranger station. They nodded politely. They said the trail registers had been removed weeks ago as part of the investigation. When I told them I'd just seen them, The ranger looked at me for a long time and said, "Sometimes the trail shows people things. They never found Kyle." I still have a photo I took of one of his entries. When I got home and looked at it on my phone, the page in the photo was blank. And something about that story unsettles me every time I read it. The idea that the trail just kept going and that Kyle might still be walking it. The next story is different. It's about a volunteer search party that found far more than they were looking for. This one is called the volunteer search that found too many. A group of civilians is sent into the woods to look for a missing teenager, and what they find there suggests she wasn't the first. Not by a long time. We found 7 people in those woods. We were only looking for one. In March of 2019, I volunteered for a community search party in rural Tennessee after a 16-year-old girl named Haley Brandt went missing from a gas station parking lot. She'd gone inside to pay, and when her friend looked up from her phone, Haley's car was still there, engine running, driver's door open. Haley was gone. I'd done volunteer searches before. I'm a former AMT. I know what to expect. What I didn't expect was the grid assignment we were given. Our group of 8 was sent into a stretch of forest behind an abandoned church property about 4 miles from the gas station. The search coordinator told us the dogs had hit on something near the tree line, but wouldn't go further. He said that casually, like it was normal. It's not normal. We spread out in a line about 10 feet apart and started walking into the trees. The first thing I noticed was the silence. No birds, no insects. It was 55 degrees and overcast, prime conditions for a noisy forest. But it was dead quiet. The only sounds were our boots and the crackle of radios. About 400 yards in, the guy to my left called out. He'd found a shoe. Women's sneaker, white, relatively clean. Not Haley's size, according to the description we'd been given. Too big. We flagged it and kept moving. 200 yards later, someone else found a jacket. Men's large, weathered but not destroyed. We flagged it. Then a backpack. Then another shoe. Different brand, different size. None of it matched Haley's description. Then I found the first phone. It was half buried in leaves, screen cracked but intact. I picked it up and it still had a charge. The lock screen photo was a man in his 40s smiling at a barbecue. I didn't recognize him. I bagged it and called it in. The coordinator's voice on the radio went very quiet, and he told us to hold position. We didn't hold position. One of the other volunteers, a woman named Diane, had pushed ahead. She called out and her voice had changed. The confidence was gone. I walked up to where she was standing and looked down into a shallow ravine. There were belongings scattered across the bottom, not in a pile, spread out in a pattern that almost looked deliberate. Shoes arranged in pairs, wallets open, ID facing up, phones placed screen down, 7 distinct sets of personal items laid out like place settings at a table that wasn't there. I counted the ID. 7 people, 3 men, 4 women, ages ranging from maybe 20 to 60 based on the photos. None of them were Haley Brandt. I radioed this in, and the coordinator told us to leave the ravine immediately and return to the staging area. His voice was shaking. We later learned that 4 of the 7 ID matched active missing persons cases from 3 different states. The earliest had been missing since 2014. The other 3 didn't match any reports at all. No one had reported them missing. No one had noticed they were gone. But here's the part that I can't explain, and the part that made me stop volunteering for searches permanently. While we were standing at the edge of that ravine, Diane grabbed my arm and pointed to the far side. Partially obscured by a fallen log, there was an 8th set of items laid out in the same deliberate pattern. A pair of sneakers, a phone in a pink case, a wallet. The sneakers were the right size. The phone case matched the description Haley's friend had given, but Haley Brandt had only been missing for 11 hours. The ravine was 4 miles into dense, unmarked forest with no trail access. Her car was still running at the gas station. Her friend said she'd been inside the store for less than 3 minutes. The search was turned over to the FBI that evening. I was told not to discuss the scene. I never heard anything else about the case. Haley Brandt's page on the missing persons database still says status missing. I think about those belongings laid out like place settings. Someone put them there. Someone arranged them carefully over years, and they were waiting for the 8th. And that one's hard to shake. The idea that something in those woods was collecting people and keeping a record, almost like trophies. almost like invitations. This last story is the one that disturbed me the most out of the three. It's not about someone searching for a missing person. It's about someone finding out that the missing person is them. This one is called the callback number on the flyer. The missing person on the flyer was me. Same face, same name, but I was standing right there reading it. Let me explain. Last summer, I was driving through a small town in northern New Mexico on my way to visit a friend in Taos. I stopped for gas at one of those ancient pumps outside a general store that looked like it hadn't been renovated since the 70s. Faded awning, sun-warped posters in the window, a cork bulletin board by the front door pinned with community notices. I glanced at the board on my way inside and I stopped. There was a missing persons flyer with my photograph on it. My name, my date of birth, my height and weight. The photo was one I recognized. It was from my driver's license, the one currently in my wallet. The flyer said I'd last been seen on June 18, 2023, at a gas station in Canyons, New Mexico. It listed a callback number with a 505 area code. June 18, 2023 was that day. I was looking at it on June 18th, and Canyons was the name of the town I was standing in. I pulled the flyer off the board. The paper was weathered, like it had been there for weeks, maybe months. The edges were curled and sun-faded, but the date said today. I went inside. The man behind the counter was old, 60s or 70s, and he looked at me the way you look at someone you've seen before but can't place. I held up the flyer and asked him about it. He stared at it, then at me, then back at the flyer. He said that had been up there a while. I asked him who put it there. He said he didn't remember. People pin things up all the time. I asked him how long was a while. He didn't answer. He just looked at my face and then at the photo on the flyer and said, "You should probably go." I went back to my car. I sat there for a minute and then I called the number on the flyer. It rang 4 times. Someone picked up. There was breathing on the other end, and then a voice said my name. Not as a question, as a confirmation, like they were checking me off a list. I said, "Who is this?" The voice, a man's voice, flat and calm, said, "We've been looking for you." Then he said, "You're at the gas station in Canyons." It wasn't a question either. I hadn't told him where I was. I hung up. I started the car and pulled out of the lot. As I was leaving, I looked in the rearview mirror, and the old man from the store was standing outside watching me drive away. He wasn't waving or calling out. He was just standing there. And next to him in the parking lot, there was a car that hadn't been there when I arrived. A dark sedan, no plates, with someone sitting in the driver's seat. I drove straight to Taos. I didn't stop. I kept checking my mirrors. I never saw the sedan again. When I got to my friend's house, I showed him the flyer. He went pale. He said the photo wasn't from my current license. It was from my old one, the one that expired in 2019. I hadn't had that photo in any digital form in years. I called the number again the next morning. It was disconnected, not out of service. Disconnected, like it had been a working line that someone had physically cut. I tried to find Canyons on Google Maps later. The town exists. It's real. But the gas station I stopped at doesn't appear in any street view. There's no general store on the road I was on. There's nothing there. I went back 2 weeks later. I drove the same route, same road, same mile markers. The building was gone. Not demolished. Not closed. Just gone. Like it had never been there. The bulletin board, the pumps, the old man. None of it. But there was a wooden post on the side of the road, right about where the store should have been, and stapled to it was a new flyer. Different person this time. A woman, mid-30s. Last seen June 30th, 2023, at a gas station in Canyons, New Mexico. The callback number was the same 505 number. I thought about calling it. I didn't. I drove away and I haven't been back. But sometimes late at night, I search that woman's name online. I've never found a single result. No social media. No records. No missing persons report. It's like she doesn't exist. Or she doesn't exist yet. The flyer is still in my glove box. I check it sometimes. The photo of me is still there. But every time I look at it, I swear the background behind my face has changed slightly. Like wherever that photo was taken is getting closer.
And that's where tonight's file closes. But the archives are far from empty. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe and join us as we uncover more horrors, mysteries, and true crimes hidden in the horror archives. Until next time, keep the lights low, keep listening, because you never know what story we'll uncover next.